SEO Beyond Algorithms. Would you trust a map that kept changing overnight? That's precisely how many content creators and strategists feel about SEO. The relentless wave of algorithm updates has left marketers scrambling, wondering if they'll wake up to a sudden dip in rankings. But here's the hard truth you need to face today. SEO is no longer about chasing algorithms. Instead, it's about mastering a data-driven, user-focused approach. To stay ahead of the curve, you need a strategy grounded in adaptability, ethical practices, and superior content creation. It's time to rethink SEO, not as a game against search engines, but as a partnership focused on delivering meaningful value to audiences. The real challenge is the algorithm's purpose, not the algorithm itself. Google makes an estimated 500,600 updates to its algorithm every year. Why such rapid evolution? Search engines are refining what they believe to be the ultimate goal of search itself, to connect users to information that satisfies their intent. Instead of obsessing over minor technical tweaks, ask yourself one crucial question. What does my audience need at this very moment? By truly understanding user intent, you can begin creating content that satisfies human curiosity while organically meeting search engine expectations. You'll stop reacting to every Google eye roll and start building a content library that consistently provides answers, insights, and solutions.
Okay, so if you ever had that moment where you're like, finally I get SEO, I've cracked the code, and then boom, everything changes. Like the rules of the game just totally shifted overnight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like you're trying to follow this treasure map, but somebody keeps erasing and redrawing it all the time. Like one of the articles we're looking at today even calls it SEO Beyond Algorithms, and I think that just perfectly captures that feeling.
It really does. It's like SEO is always on the move, and we're just trying to keep up. So in this deep dive, we're going to try and get beyond that feeling of chasing the algorithm. We're going to look at what really drives SEO success now, and more importantly, what's going to keep working in the future. Beyond all those little algorithm tweaks.
Yeah, because let's be real for a second. Google makes like, what, 500, 600 updates a year. It's impossible to keep track of all of them.
It's totally overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right? It feels like a never-ending game. And you just end up feeling like you're always one step behind.
Exactly. But here's the thing that our sources all point to. It's not about the number of updates. It's about the why behind them.
Okay, so what's the why then?
The why is always user intent. It's about satisfying what you, the searcher, are actually looking for.
So it's not just about pleasing Google, it's about understanding the people who are using Google.
Exactly. This deep dive is all about giving you a new framework for SEO, a framework that's more adaptable and in the long run, way more effective.
So instead of reacting to every little Google update, we're going to focus on building a strategy that delivers consistent value, no matter what Google does.
Precisely. Because the fundamental goal of search engines hasn't actually changed. They're still all about connecting you, the user, with the information you need to satisfy your intent, as they say.
Okay, so how do we make sure that our content is actually satisfying user intent?
Well, it starts with a shift in perspective. Instead of obsessing over all the tiny technical SEO details, we need to ask ourselves a much more human-centered question. What is my audience really looking for in this moment when they type in that search query?
I like that. It's a much more user-focused way of thinking about SEO.
Right. It's about understanding the intent behind the keywords. If you can get into the mind of the searcher, you can create content that naturally aligns with what Google is trying to do.
Which is to give people the best possible answers to their questions.
Exactly. It's less about gaming the system and more about providing real value to real people.
Makes sense. So where does data fit into all of this?
Data is everything now. It's the foundation of modern SEO. The days of guessing and hoping for the best are over.
Right. It's all about making data-driven decisions. And luckily, there are some amazing tools out there to help us do that.
Absolutely. Our sources talk a lot about some of the big players in SEO analytics like SEMrush and Ahrefs.
And of course, Google Search Console is an absolute must-have.
For sure. And one of the most important things we can learn from these tools is what's called keyword intelligence.
Keyword intelligence. So that's understanding what words people are actually using when they search.
Exactly. And more than that, it's understanding the different levels of intent behind those keywords.
Okay, so there are different kinds of keywords.
Yeah. There are broad keywords, which are more general, and then there are what we call long-tail keywords, which are much more specific and really pinpoint the user's intent.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. So a broad keyword might be something like best running shoes.
Okay, pretty general.
Right. But a long-tail keyword might be something like Best trail running shoes for beginners.
Gotcha. So with the long-tail keyword, you immediately understand the searcher's specific need. They're a beginner runner, and they're looking for trail running shoes.
Exactly. The more specific the keyword, the clearer the intent, and the better equipped you are to create content that directly addresses that need.
So it's not just about finding any old keywords. It's about finding the right keywords, the ones that match the specific needs of our audience.
Precisely. And once you have that understanding, then you can start thinking about user engagement metrics.
User engagement metrics, what are those?
These are the signals that tell us whether or not people are actually finding what they're looking for when they land on our page.
Okay, so are people actually reading our content? Are they clicking on our links? Are they staying on our site?
Exactly. We're talking about things like bounce rate, time on page, click-through rate. These are all indicators of how engaging our content is.
And I'm guessing Google pays attention to these metrics too?
Oh, absolutely. They're a huge ranking factor. If people are bouncing off your page right away, it's a sign that your content isn't relevant or engaging. And Google's going to notice that.
So we need to make sure our content is interesting enough to keep people on the page.
Right. And that it's actually answering the question that they were searching for.
So how do we measure the success of our SEO efforts? I mean, beyond just looking at these engagement metrics.
That's where ROI evaluation comes in, or return on investment.
So we need to prove that our SEO work is actually making a difference to the bottom line.
Exactly. And there are some great tools out there to help us do that. Our sources mention HubSpot Analytics and Google Data Studio.
These tools help us connect the dots between our SEO activities and our business goals.
Right, whether that's generating leads, making sales, or even just getting people to sign up for our newsletter.
So we can track exactly how our SEO efforts are contributing to the overall success of our business.
Exactly, and that's really important because it helps us justify the time and resources that we're investing in SEO.
So data is key. It's the foundation of modern SEO.
Absolutely. If you're not using data to inform your SEO decisions, you're basically flying blind.
Okay, so we've talked about user intent and data. Now let's talk about content. What role does content play in all of this?
Content is still king, as they say, but the bar has definitely been raised.
Right. It's not enough to just churn out generic content anymore.
No, you need to create content that resonates, educates, and inspires action.
So high-quality content is more important than ever.
Absolutely. And our sources talk about several key ingredients of high-quality content.
Okay, like what?
Well, first of all, it needs to be original and it needs to demonstrate expertise.
So no more just rewriting what everyone else is saying.
No, you need to offer unique insights and in-depth knowledge. You need to become a trusted source of information in your niche.
The source gave an interesting example of this. They said instead of writing about something broad, like SEO in 2024, you could focus on something much more specific and expert-driven, like how AI will shift SEO strategies in 2024.
Yeah, that's a great example because it shows that you're not just repeating the same old stuff. You're actually thinking deeply about the future of SEO.
And it's not just about written content, right?
No, the source also talks about value-driven media. So that's incorporating things like video tutorials, infographics, interactive elements, all those things that can make your content more engaging and accessible.
So it's about catering to different learning styles and making sure your content is as appealing and informative as possible.
Exactly. And the final piece of the content puzzle is continuous relevance updates.
So we need to keep our content fresh and up to date.
Absolutely. Especially for what we call evergreen content. The stuff that's always going to be relevant.
Like the basics of SEO, for example.
Exactly. You need to revisit that content regularly and make sure it's still accurate and up to date.
Otherwise, you risk losing your ranking.
Exactly. So content is key, but it needs to be high quality content that's been carefully crafted with the user in mind.
Okay, so we've talked about user intent data in content. Now let's talk about ethics. What role does ethics play in SEO?
Ethics is becoming more and more important in the SEO world.
Because Google is cracking down on black hat tactics.
Right. And because people are savvier than ever, they can spot a spammy website a mile away.
So it's not just about following the rules, it's about doing what's right.
Exactly. Ethical SEO is about building a sustainable and trustworthy online presence.
And it starts with using white hat strategies.
Right. So that means no keyword stuffing, no hidden text, no link farming.
All those shady tactics that used to work back in the day.
Yeah, those tricks don't work anymore.
Yeah.
And they can actually get you penalized by Google.
So what does white hat SEO look like?
It's about creating high-quality content that people actually want to read. It's about earning natural backlinks from reputable websites.
So it's about building real relationships and providing real value.
Exactly. And it's also about prioritizing accessibility.
Accessibility.
Yeah.
So making sure your website is easy to use for everyone.
Right. That includes people with disabilities.
So things like using alt text for images and making sure your site is navigable with a keyboard.
Exactly. These things are important for both users and search engines.
Because they help Google understand your content and they make your site more user-friendly.
Precisely. And finally, there's the EEAT framework.
EET. What's that stand for?
Expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness.
So it's all about building trust with Google and with your audience.
Exactly. Google wants to see that you're a credible source of information, that you have the expertise and authority to be writing about the topics you're covering.
And that you're trustworthy, that you're not trying to trick people or game the system.
Exactly. So ethical SEO is not just about avoiding penalties, it's about building a brand that people can trust.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of important concepts here. But how do we actually measure the ROI of SEO?
That's a great question, and it's one that a lot of people struggle with.
Because SEO can be hard to quantify.
Right. It's not as straightforward as, say, paid advertising, where you can track every click and conversion.
So how do we know if our SEO efforts are actually paying off?
Well, traditional metrics like website traffic and rankings can give us some insights, but they don't tell the whole story.
The source points out that we often miss the impact SEO has on branding, long-tail conversions, and customer lifetime value.
Exactly. And luckily, there are some more sophisticated tools that can help us get a more complete picture.
Okay, like what?
Well, one example is Google Analytics 4, or GA4.
What's so special about GA4?
It offers something called multi-touch attribution.
Multi-touch attribution.
Yeah. So imagine someone searches for a product on Google. They click on your website, but they don't buy anything. Then a week later, they see one of your ads on social media and they click through to your site again. And this time they make a purchase.
Okay, so they interacted with your brand multiple times before they finally converted.
Exactly. And multi-touch attribution helps us understand how each of those touch points contributed to the final sale.
So we can see that SEO played a role, even though it wasn't the last click.
Exactly. And that's really important because it helps us justify our SEO budget and show that it's actually making a difference.
So GA4 is a powerful tool.
It really is. And another tool that the source mentions is heat mapping software.
Heat mapping software, what's that?
It's a tool that visually shows you how people are interacting with your website.
So we can see where they're clicking, how far they're scrolling, what they're ignoring.
Exactly. It's like having X-ray vision into user behavior.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we can use that information to improve our website design and make sure people are finding what they're looking for.
Exactly. And finally, the source talks about the importance of CRM integrated metrics.
CRM, customer relationship management.
Right. So by connecting our SEO data with our CRM system, we can see how our SEO efforts are actually translating into leads and sales.
Yeah, so we can see which keywords are driving the most valuable customers.
Exactly. And that helps us refine our SEO strategy and focus on the areas that are generating the biggest ROI.
So these advanced tools are really changing the game when it comes to measuring SEO.
They really are.
Yeah.
They're helping us move beyond vanity metrics like traffic and rankings and focus on the things that really matter to our business.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one more important concept that I want to touch on, and that's the idea of collaborative SEO.
Ah, yes. The future of SEO.
Exactly. So what does collaborative SEO look like?
It's about breaking down the silos between different departments within a company.
So marketing, sales, customer service, they all need to be working together.
Exactly. Because SEO is not just a marketing function anymore. It's a business-wide initiative.
So everyone needs to be on the same page when it comes to SEO.
Exactly. And the source gives a great example of how this might work in practice.
Okay, let's hear it.
So let's say your SEO team identifies a growing trend of long-tail keyword searches related to a specific problem that your product solves.
Okay, so people are searching for a solution to a problem that you can help with.
Exactly. And this information is shared with the sales team, who can then start using that same language in their conversations with potential customers.
So they're speaking the language of the customer.
Right. And at the same time, the content team can start creating blog posts and articles that directly address those specific pain points.
And the social media team can amplify those messages across different platforms.
Exactly. So everyone is working together to reach the same audience with the same message.
It's a beautiful symphony of SEO harmony.
Exactly. And that's what collaborative SEO is all about. It's about breaking down the silos and working together to achieve common goals.
It's about taking a holistic approach to SEO and making sure everyone is on board.
Precisely. And when you do that, you can achieve some truly amazing results.
Okay, so to wrap things up, what's the key takeaway from this deep dive?
The key takeaway is that SEO is no longer about trying to trick the algorithms.
It's about building genuine trust with your audience and with search engines.
It's about providing real value and solving real problems.
It's about taking a user-centric approach to everything you do online.
And it's about embracing the power of collaboration.
So if you want to succeed in the ever-changing world of SEO, you need to be willing to adapt, evolve, and work together.
Absolutely. Because SEO is not a solo sport anymore, it's a team effort.
Now, as you reflect on everything we've discussed today, I want you to ask yourself this question. How well are your SEO efforts integrated with your sales, marketing, and customer service teams?
What steps can you take to foster a more collaborative approach?
And what new insights might emerge from that synergy? That's something to really think about.
Absolutely. It's the key to unlocking the full potential of SEO.
Well said. And on that note, that's a wrap for this deep dive into the world of SEO beyond algorithms.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep optimizing your online presence.
See you then.